Getting things fired up. Where the chickens at? Oh, the chickens done gone to bed. Oh, give everybody a few minutes to join in. Oh man, those baby back ribs I made for dinner are fighting back. They were fantastic though. Smoked some baby back ribs today, whole chicken tomorrow, and that other rack of ribs to go with it. Oh, Monuments Week for Florida this week. Get the bear hunt back on the menu with another vote to follow in August to vote on proposed rules. So we should see a bear hunt come December, which is exciting news. All right, well, we'll find the record button on this daggum here microphone. We'll kick this show off. So, as always, this week's Live on Air is brought to you by Deep Roots Rifle Company. Elevated in excellence, rooted in integrity and reliability. You can use the link in the description to get on over to their website and order just about everything you'll need to get into the woods this fall. From fully custom rifles built in house to flashlights to help you find your way in the dark. And be sure to tell them the UPO podcast sent you. I was looking at their Instagram today and they had a sweet full custom rifle. And in reality, a lot of their custom rifles really aren't that pricey. We've given some away in the past, and it's a really nice rifle. Bill Stewart won that one, and I think he's more than happy with it. Maybe we need to give another one away. Another one of their custom rifles. They're pretty daggum sweet. But this week we are talking hunting on military bases. But before we get into that, let's talk about Memorial Day. Memorial Day is all too often confused with Veterans Day. They're not the same. Veterans Day that's for me. I'm a veteran. Memorial Day is for those who didn't make it home. Those who didn't make it through war and the complications brought on thereafter. It was originally called Decoration Day, and it began after the Civil War to honor Union soldiers who had died. In 1971, it was adopted as a national holiday and to take place on the last Monday in May to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. This Memorial Day for me, it's a little closer to home. I've lost several friends over the years. Due to their own choosing. And if you're one of those people who is teetering on the edge of thinking that maybe the world's better off without you. I encourage you to reach out to a friend. And if I'm a friend, by all means, please call me. I would love to talk to you. I'd rather hear all about your problems for hours than listen to your eulogy for 2 minutes. As always, you can dial 988. But this one hits a little closer to home for me this year because I recently lost one of my best friends. Due to, how do I want to describe it? Some unforeseen circumstances involved around the wars he fought in. My buddy Greg deployed to Iraq during Desert Storm, got out of the Army, came back in, and went to Afghanistan in 2012. Due to complications from those and exposure to burn pits, Greg got cancer, among many other issues he suffered from. But the cancer ultimately led to his death last year. And I miss him dearly. Greg didn't know when he came home from either Iraq or Afghanistan that ultimately that would lead to him leaving us too soon. But I don't think he would have changed it for the world. He was a hell of a man, full of life. Sad I never got to take him hunting, but we did fish a lot together. If he had to bet his life on casting a bait caster, he'd have been dead a long time ago. But he did enjoy fishing. Many trips to the gun store. And I've got a piece to remember him by. And his memory will live on right here. But keep that in mind tomorrow. When you're out, hanging out with friends and barbecuing, and it's not just a free day off. It was paid for. And tomorrow's for Greg. But in honor of Memorial Day, we're going to talk about hunting on a military base. And there aren't many states that don't have a base on them. I don't think of one offhand. Between the Air Force and the Army and the Marines, the Navy's obviously pretty coastal. But really, the Army and the Air Force take up, larger swaths of land, the Army being the big one. Army bases are huge. So they got a lot of woods back there that you can hunt in. And when I was stationed at Fort Campbell, that was my main go-to. Like, here I am, brand new private in the Army. My first time, this is, let's see, I got to Campbell in July of 2012. And I'll be damned if I wasn't going hunting, because at this point, up to 2012, and still to this day, I have not missed a hunting season, okay? Can't say I've gone a year without killing a deer, because ever since, I've got my son hunting, it's really not that important to me anymore. He's filling the freezer, and I'm hunting the horns. So I haven't killed a deer in a couple years. But it pleases me just as much, if not more, to watch him lay some does down. But got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I was hell-bent on deer hunting. So back in 2012, Fort Campbell, all the hunting was run through the MWR. Now it's run through iSportsman, which we'll get to that in a minute. But the way the MWR had it set up, Fort Campbell was cool because back then, when deer season opened, it usually opened the same weekend that the state of Tennessee opened. Because for those that don't know, Fort Campbell is it's Fort Campbell, Kentucky, but the majority of the base property actually lies in the state of Tennessee. It's just the post office is in the state of Kentucky, so it's Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It's like 70-something% of the base is in the state of Tennessee. But the base used to open, I believe, opening weekend for the Tennessee opened, because Kentucky opens like the first Saturday in September, and the base wouldn't open for another 2 or 3 weeks, so towards the end of September. I don't know if you guys could hear my chickens chirping. I got some chicks back there on the porch. But so 2012, I did my research, and back then, it was when it opened, everything was open, and you couldn't hunt on Fort Campbell. You were hunting with a bow, a shotgun, or a muzzleloader. You couldn't hunt with a rifle. Now that's changed, and you can hunt with a rifle. But back then, you had bow-only areas, where obviously it was bow-only, and then shotgun muzzleloader areas, where you could hunt with a bow, but you could also hunt with a shotgun or muzzleloader. If you hunt with a bow, you got to wear orange in those areas. So back then, you would call into the phone line 48 hours in advance to reserve your training area. So for Saturdays, you were calling in on Thursday morning. Active duty could call in at 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that. And then 30 minutes later would follow retirees. 30 minutes after that, DOD civilians and their families. And then 30 minutes after that was civilians. So that's how they kind of broke up and gave active duty priority for those training areas over civilians. But dude, opening weekend, when you had to phone in, I would call 300 to 400 times and hit a busy signal before I got through to a to where I could sign into a training area. And it's like a push button, press 1 for shotgun, press 2 for archery. And I think they only had 3 phone lines, something like that. So it was a pain in the butt. So you would look at, and prior to that, they would publish a list of training areas that were open for shotgun, muzzleloader, bow. And then as you got on throughout the year, you'd have duck ponds and training areas open for duck hunting and small game or whatever else. They'd only allow so many people per training area, depending on how big the training area was and what you were hunting, right? So you could put a few more people in there for bow than you could for shotgun or muzzleloader. What I figured out pretty quick, though, was I got an app on my phone that would auto redial. So you'd hit a busy signal, it'd hang up and redial right back. When I started doing that, I could I switched from 300 phone calls to like 7, which was fantastic. They don't do that anymore. At least on Fort Campbell. It's all through iSportsman, and I assume that probably majority of bases are through iSportsman now, where you sign in online, pick your training area. Last time I hunted Fort Campbell, we went up probably 2022 or 23. We drove up there, and the night before you could sign in on the computer for the next day. But you're in a, everybody could get in at once, but each training area had so many slots available, the most going to active duty, and then veterans and retirees and DOD civilians and so on and so forth. As a veteran, I had no problem getting the areas I wanted amongst the active duty, but when I had my dad and my brother with me at that time, and Jim, and they had a little tougher time as civilians getting the good areas. So, I mean, it is what it is, but not every base is run like that. Some bases, like Fort Knox, for example, are running more of a quota system, from my understanding. Each base is going to be a little different. It's going to depend on the commanding officer. So, what you're going to want to do is figure out what base is closest to you that you want to go hunt. Or if you're stationed at one, look at your regulations. If you're stationed at one, the odds are in your favor. If you're a civilian or a veteran looking at one close to you, or one that you want to go hunt, the odds are a little tougher. But look at the iSportsman, see how it's laid out. On Campbell, you couldn't hunt on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Those were scout days. So you could go out there and, wander around the woods, give you a little chance to scout the woods during the week. At least it used to be that way. Again, I haven't been there a couple of years, haven't looked at their regulations. It changes every year, all the time, with the base commander. So check those out. But military bases are an excellent source for quality managed public land. And what I mean by that is, like, when I hunted Fort Campbell, one, I missed the biggest buck I've ever seen in my life at 30 yards with a bow on Fort Campbell. Bambi's frickin' daddy. Okay? Absolute monster. I've seen bigger bucks than the one that I missed from the side of the road. And I've never hunted a spot. And when I say I sat one day and watched 30 deer throughout the day, like that place is loaded. But it's also very well, let's say, trophy managed, right? I believe now they have antler restrictions. When I hunted there, when I first started there, they didn't. And then they implemented the Earn a Buck program. Now, Cody, I hope you're in here. I'm about to talk some mad shit on you. So Cody was my neighbor when I lived on post. And we turkey hunted together first. He was with me when I got my first round off on a turkey, but didn't kill it. And then, say probably that next year, we went and deer hunted together. But that year was the first year they had done Earn a Buck. And by Earn a Buck, I mean you had to kill a doe before you were allowed to kill a buck. Now in Fort Campbell, you're only allowed one buck per year. And last I checked, there was no limit on does. So every year prior to that, you see a pattern of missing. Thanks, Tyke. I've only missed one deer, two deer now. Okay. it started to earn a buck. So prior to that, I killed my first deer with a bow, a nice doe at 30 yards, and then later that year I killed a nice 8-point. And then we got into the earn a buck program. But every year I'd killed a doe first. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, the first year they did the earn a buck program, I took like a week and a half vacation to make sure I had time to get out and kill a doe soon as season opened. So the first weekend season opened, Cody was with me. And opening morning, we go out, and I had scouted this area prior to this, and we had a good deer trail moving along this ridge, and I was like, I'm gonna have Cody sit a bit further down the ridge over here, and I'm gonna move back this way and sit. That way, if a deer, a good deer walks past me, I'll let it go to him, just let him know, hey, it's coming. He'd never killed a deer before. Well, when we got there in the morning, how this dude got there, I have no idea, because we parked in like the best area, the best parking place to get to where we wanted to hunt. But when I told Cody, I was like, you're going to go down there, and I shine my light, I could see a ground blind with reflectors on it. I said, never mind. So I said, come with me. There's multiple trees where I was going to sit. You put your climber up next to me. We'll just hunt side by side this morning. So coming down the ridge at a good clip, I look behind me, and I see a spike. Had one spike that was about that long, but it was broke off beneath the skin and was laid back on its neck. And I saw it as it ran underneath me. Now Cody was back and off to my right. So I looked down, and the other spike wasn't but about that big. So I watched it go underneath me, and I turned back to Cody and I said, don't. And then boom, that muzzleloader went off. And that spike just piled up 10 yards away. I turned to Cody, I said, you fucked up. Because he wasn't but maybe 15 yards off back to my right, away from me. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, that was a spike. He's like, that's a doe. I said, no, brother, that's a spike. And sure enough, that was in fact a spike. And we called the game warden. He did the right thing. And explained to him what was going on. The game warden told him if it was less than 4.5 inches, he would give him a pass. Or something like that. So we take the buck to the check station. And the lady at the check station, nobody really liked her. She was a royal pain in the butt. She's always rude. Like, you'd be there for the smallest thing, coming to buy bait, right? Because they had a little bait shop at the check station. She's just rude. The guy running the check station measured the deer at like 4.5 even. And the game warden was like, well, and then she's like, no. And I feel like she stretched the tape. She was mad about it. And she got him by like a 1/16 of an inch. And the game warden wrote him a ticket, like $120. Banned him from hunting posts for 30 days, which sucks. But the irony in it is that he signed up for the Donate a Deer program, and I'm pretty sure got his own deer back like a week later. Because on base, you could kill a deer and then give it to the Donate a Deer program, and they would give it to people who wanted a deer, like wanted the deer meat. But Fort Campbell offered so many hunting opportunities. It was fantastic. Tyke, who's in here, we hunted some quail together. We hunted a lot of coyotes together. Small game. I used to take the small game hunting opportunities and go out and use those to scout for deer in the preseason because I like scouting for deer with a 22. I mean, who doesn't? Let's go kill some squirrels and scout for deer. Funny squirrel hunting story. I had pulled off the side of the road in train area 10. And I was like, yeah, this looks like a good. So I could see a truck for a long ways. I don't know where this guy parked, but walked across a cornfield, cut cornfield, probably a soybean field because corn shouldn't have been cut at that time. Walked across an agriculture field, got off in the woods, and nature made her call. So, and you think about like trail cameras. Couldn't run trail cameras on base. I still don't think you can. Maybe you can now. I don't know. At that time, you couldn't. That'd get you a lifetime ban, which is I think is stupid, but it's neither here nor there. So, I look around. I don't see nobody else. Grab a tree, do my business. As I finish cleaning up, I look off to my left, and I see an orange hat. That poor soul had to have been there the entire time. I swear he had to put that orange hat on halfway through that massacre in the leaves. I apologize. I didn't see you. Shit happens, literally. Killed some of my best deer on Fort Campbell. Shot a 13 point. That'd have been 2015. Had a buddy who got stationed at Campbell after I left, who I sent him some pins. I was like, hey man, you need to go hunt these areas. He killed a beautiful buck with his bow, which is definitely Pope and Young. Probably 140, 150 inch buck with a bow. And he killed that buck 300 yards from where you park your truck. There's big bucks on that base. I left Fort Campbell and I went to Fort Stewart. Not to mention there's great fishing on these bases as well. So you're using the same thing to sign in to fish, to hunt, to whatever. Sportsman. When I was at Fort Stewart, I never hunted Fort Stewart. Scouted out there a little bit, but fished on Stewart a lot because we had a lot more. Fort Campbell only had Lake Tall. There was a pond in the train area. I can't remember what it was called. And what was the other lake called? It was like two lakes in a river. You could trout fish in the river. Never tried that. But there wasn't much fishing to be had there. Plenty of duck hunting, plenty of deer hunting, plenty of stuff like that. But Fort Stewart had a lot of ponds, and they had some good bass in them. We had two ponds right there on 3rd Brigade that were right behind the barracks. I used to go there and fish on lunch. I caught multiple 5 and 6 pound bass out of there on lunch. And I would just bring a fishing pole and then sign into a pond and go fish for lunch. We had an hour and a half for lunch. I had time to fish. By the way, these are fantastic beers you can get a hold of only this time of year. Sierra Nevada Summerfest. But there's a lot of recreation opportunities across military installations all across the U.S. From the limited amount of reading I did today, like there's opportunities in Texas that would allow you to hunt some exotics, hogs, on a lot of bases especially in the southeast. Benning, Stewart, well, it's not Benning, Fort Moore, Stewart, it's Benning. Benning, Stewart, Hunt Army Airfield. What's one in Alabama? Rucker. Knox has got some big old dang deer. Campbell's got some big old dang deer. Like, if you're near these bases and you aren't exercising, the opportunity is given to you to try and go hunt them, even as a civilian. Because you may find it hard to get in on the weekend, but if you go out during the week when the guys are, the veteran or the active duty are busy, the opportunities are a lot easier. And I forgot to mention that when we hunted there like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday and Friday were easy to get for the civilians in the group to get in. Saturday or Thursday was easy. Friday was kind of hard. Saturday and Sunday, we said screw it, and we hunted off post on some public land. Still killed deer. And if you're in the Patreon group, we're going back to Tennessee in August to do a velvet hunt. And we've already got the lodging covered. So if you're not in Patreon, you should join Patreon and join us in Tennessee. Because that's the only way you're going to find out where we're going. Around Fort Stewart, there's a lot of public land as well, which is great. Even around Fort Campbell, there was a lot of public land. A decent amount. Cheatham, land between the lakes. So there's a lot of hunting to be done. The cool thing about Army bases, they're in the middle of the woods, middle of nowhere. The city exists because the base is there. That's usually about it. My buddy AJ was stationed at Fort Drum, New York, and he said the duck hunting was phenomenal. So each base has its own little thing. Go out and explore it. Use the resources available to you, especially if you're active duty, to get out and get into the woods, because those are resources you're not going to have as easy access to once you get out. Hunting on base was fun. You go to Fort Stewart, and part of that is what they call trophy managed. I think the west side is 4 point or better, or 4 points on one side or better. I think Fort Campbell has a inside spread rule. Maybe I have to look into that. Pretty sure they had an inside spread rule. Maybe a point rule to go with that. But these bases have good deer and quality habitat. And they work with habitat managers and biologists and everything else to make sure that outside of the training area, obviously training comes first, but there's good hunting going on out there. So if you're not doing that, you're missing out. I found some massive sheds on Fort Campbell. Big deadheads wandered that base all over. Right before I left, they allowed hunting in the cantonment areas, which was like the on-post areas, and there's some monster bucks in that on-post area. They didn't allow the harvest of bucks, but from my understanding, they might now. Cantonment areas weren't easy to get. I got the cantonment area hunt the first year it was open because I had dealt with the game warden on multiple occasions. That was the first year the Earn a Buck program was in play, and I found a little 4 point that had been shot and left, and then later on in the year, I found a deer with a crossbow bolt stuck in it, and in an area that was not a huntable area. When the game warden met me out there, we found 3 more deer carcasses in the same area, and that find ultimately led to an arrest on a long poaching case. And that's what got me into cantonment areas to hunt. I did not kill a deer in there, but it was cool being able to hunt like right there in the base. And that was bow only at that time. I'm sure it still is now. But yeah, the biggest buck I ever missed was on Fort Campbell. I had got out of work early on a Friday, and I had my sights set on going to a shotgun area because I just got the cantilever scope mount slug barrel for my 12 gauge, and I wanted to shoot a deer with it. When I checked the areas this afternoon, all the shotgun areas were full. Only thing open was a bow area that I had never been to. In fact, I had to look it up on a map to figure out where it was at. I signed into it, said I'm gonna go hunt. I don't care where it's at, I'm gonna go hunt. Because you can't kill deer on the couch. And I drove out there, and I was like, this fire break looks clear enough to walk down. It was kind of pissing rain, overcast, and I walked down that fire break a good 800-900 yards, turned off, found a good oak hammock next to a pine thicket. I was relatively dry, sat up there, and then about 4:30 in the afternoon, Mac Daddy walked out at 15 yards to my left. And I watched him kind of walk behind me, and I stood up. He hit my 30 yard where I ranged a log at 30 yards. And mind you, I'd killed a doe the year before at 30 yards, like, we're on. And I let her fly. It was just vital zone twig. Right over top his back. It's one of those ones that still haunts me to this day. Still chasing that buck. Sure he's dead now. Because that was like 2013. But there's another big one out there with my name on it. We'll get there. If you guys are in here tonight, enjoy your Memorial Day tomorrow, because there are a lot of men and women, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters that gave their lives so that you could. So, raise a beer, have a toast, enjoy your day. I'm gonna hang out here for a minute, as I always do. Then I'm gonna head off. You guys got any questions? I think next week I'm gonna be coming back fresh from a camping trip, so we'll cover some equipment that I carry, oddly enough, to the woods about every time I go, because I like to, especially on public land, I don't like to leave my spot once I park there, so I'll whip it all out, and mainly my cooking gear, and I'll cook some breakfast and have some coffee when I get back to the truck in the middle of the day. Some other stuff like that. Creature comforts, per se. Well, we'll catch you guys next week.